Hello, everyone, and welcome to the fourth and final TCC Summer Live Success Workshops offered by the TCC Learning Commons. My name is Sam DeZerga, and I'm the Academic Success Coach here in the Learning Commons at Tallahassee Community College, and I'm happy to present to you today some online study tips. So this is an online study crash course. Now, I don't want to say that these are study tips that are only for online courses. Of course, you can apply these study tips and use these virtual tools when you're taking on-campus courses as well. But I did want to offer a workshop that briefly goes over some of the more virtual or online study tips to help you succeed in your online classes this summer. So with all of that being said, let's just go ahead and roll right into it. Here's an overview of everything that we are going to talk about today. First, we're going to talk about sort of this test anxiety, confidence, and stress management strategies. I do understand that this is a very stressful time for many of our students, and so that is going to definitely play out when it comes time to take tests. And so we're going to talk about some stress management strategies. And then we're going to jump over to these study preparation techniques and tools. So I've listed an outline of everything that we're going to go over today, but I do just want to go through. I know this is going to be a little bit of a longer presentation, so I do want to sort of move quickly through it. As I said, we're going to start off with confidence and stress management. This is a quote that I have always found to be very true. So whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So it's these beliefs that we have about ourselves, whether or not we can do something, really sets the limit for us. So if we believe we can do something, then we can do it. But if we believe that we can't, then in a way we're sort of limiting ourselves, and then we actually can't do it. This plays into something called growth mindset. So it's this belief that intelligence, your own personal intelligence, is something that can be developed and strengthened over time. Students who have a growth mindset have this desire to learn and desire to grow. There's always this belief that it's possible for you to improve oneself and that you have the power to change. This is opposed to something called a fixed mindset. And we're going to talk a little bit about how one with a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset would approach work, school, or any sort of challenge. So ask yourself these questions. Do you have a growth or a fixed mindset? Do you avoid challenges or do you embrace them? Do you give up easily? Or do you persist in the face of setbacks? Do you see effort as something that is worthless? It's not worth your time? Or do you see effort as a path to mastery? Do you ignore useful negative feedback? Or do you learn from that criticism? And then lastly, do you feel threatened by the success of others? Or do you find them to be an inspiration? Do you find lessons from the success of others? I truly hope that you will find that most of your answers are over on the right side here. You embrace challenges, you persist, you have grit, you have a growth mindset. And if you don't yet, it's something that you can develop. There are consequences of having a fixed mindset. As I said at the beginning with the quote, if you believe you can't do something, then you can't. Usually if you have a fixed mindset, you believe that your intelligence is something that cannot be changed, it is fixed, and so you will usually achieve less than your full potential. Usually you'll have dreams and goals, but you'll fall short because you'll be telling yourself, you can't do it, I can't do it. People who have a fixed mindset often lack persistence, and so they'll quit before they're truly finished. And they'll reach a level where they plateau, meaning that they'll reach a level and they'll sort of, they won't go any higher than that. They won't allow themselves to go any higher than that. And that's certainly a consequence of a fixed mindset. We want you to grow. We want you to reach your full potential and to reach your goals. So how do you nurture a growth mindset? And I want to challenge you to do something called visualizing success or visualization. Close your eyes for a moment and ask yourself, what does success look like to you? What does it feel like when you are successful? What path does it take to get there? Visualizing success can include positive self-talk. So it's very easy to say to yourself, I can't do this, or that's a weakness of mine. But I would challenge you to think of weaknesses as new opportunities. Perhaps it's not a strength, but it can be a new opportunity. And that's usually how I look at these, quote unquote weaknesses. It's always an opportunity to grow and an opportunity to learn. And then always tell yourself you can do this. You can succeed in your classes this summer. You can pass your classes, even if they're online, even if this is a strange new world that we are exploring right now. You can do this. You just have to visualize success and talk to yourself in a positive way. That's going to open up brand new opportunities that you didn't realize were there before. Visualizing success can also be a great intrinsic motivator, meaning that it's motivation within yourself. When you succeed, you feel really good about it. I asked you in the last slide to close your eyes and think about how success feels. That feeling is intrinsic motivation. And also by visualizing success and sort of closing your eyes and thinking about ways for you to get there, you can think of creative solutions for some of the toughest challenges that you might be facing. And we know that we are facing some very unique and tough challenges this summer. So let's talk about 3 stress management techniques that you can use practically anywhere. So the first, and I know you've heard it a million times before, but it truly does work, are deep breathing exercises. So take a moment and close your eyes again, and you'll want to breathe in for 3, 5, or 10 seconds, and then breathe out for the same number of seconds, 3, 5, 10 seconds. What I like to do is I like to start with 3 and do a few of those, and then increase to 5, breathe in for 5, exhale for 5, and then I like to increase to 10 and breathe out for 10. And if I really want to challenge myself and really get into a state of relaxation, I'll try 20. It's possible. You should try it sometime. Another relaxation technique for stress management is something called progressive relaxation. And that's where you tense up all of your muscles in your body, and then one by one, you relax each muscle group, sort of, as it's called, progressively relaxing your body, feeling that tension and then that relaxation. The third tip for stress management is something called guided imagery or meditation. And this is, guided imagery is close your eyes and find your happy place. So that could be imagining yourself in the mountains and you're on a nature trail, or you're on a beach somewhere. It's imagining this peaceful place where you're not feeling stress, where you don't have that anxiety. Meditation is also a stress management technique, and I would recommend, if you are interested in either guided imagery or meditation, that you download a free app such as the app Calm and sort of follow along and find what works for you. I know for me, I'm not personally a meditation person, but I do love a good guided imagery. I also want to stress the importance of sleep, specifically with stress management, but also when it comes to studying, when it comes to test anxiety, and when it comes to learning in general. I cannot stress enough the importance of sleep, and you do want to make sure that as adults you are getting anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night if possible. But sleep is also very, very important when it comes to learning. So while we're awake and while we're studying, we're encoding information. That means that we're paying attention to information and we're linking it to prior knowledge, past memories. But when we sleep, we are actually consolidating that new information and helping it to move into our long-term memory. So if we skip over the sleep part, we're cutting out a huge part of learning. And that's not good when you are studying for a big test or exam. So I do want to once again stress the importance of sleep to you. Test anxiety is a huge concern for a lot of students. And so I did want to add in 4 tips for alleviating test anxiety. Of course, if you do find that you do have some very serious test anxiety, go ahead and contact me and I'd be happy to work one-on-one with you with alleviating test anxiety. But I did want to leave you with 4 quick tips. The first is when you do get that test, take a moment, slow down for a second, and read the directions carefully. Some of the silliest mistakes on tests come from not reading slow enough and not reading the directions carefully. It might trip you up on a question that is being asked. You may have a multiple choice question where it asks you all of the following except, and then you miss that word, and so you actually choose the opposite. You just want to sort of slow down and carefully read through directions and carefully read through any questions. Also, don't be afraid to take a moment for deep breathing. We talked about deep breathing exercises, so maybe you'll take a moment to breathe in for 5 seconds or 10 seconds and breathe out. It's okay to take a moment to yourself even after you've received that test. Something else is that you can always skip harder questions and return back to them later. It's possible that easier questions will jog your memory so that when you do return to those more difficult questions, they seem a lot easier than before. Something else you might want to do is to think about some sort of reward to give yourself after you've completed an exam. You might think of, maybe I will watch a movie. I'll watch a movie that's something that I enjoy. I have to study. I have to get this test done that I'm feeling really anxious about. But when it's all said and done, I'm going to have that reward at the end. And so sometimes thinking about that reward, whether that's extrinsic or intrinsic, can help you to sort of alleviate that anxiety and get through the test. So now let's talk about some preparation techniques and tools. And I'm going to focus a lot on something called SQ4R. And this is an active reading and study method that can be used to learn and better understand written class materials. And usually this means a textbook. So SQ4R stands for survey, question, and then the 4 R's. So reading, recite, record, and review. We're going to go through each of these one by one, and you'll see how you can very easily apply the SQ4R study method into textbook reading, into taking notes, and then for studying. So the first thing you want to do is to survey the chapter. This means that you want to glance and read through titles, headers, subheaders, charts, graphs, any captions that follow images. You want to look at the images that are in the chapter as well. You just want to flip through and you want to do this quick survey of the chapter. The next thing you want to do is to question while you survey. So a great tip is to look at those chapter titles and headers and turn those headers into test questions. So it could be thinking of different multiple choice questions that could come out of that header. It could be thinking of a free response question or essay type question. And then you can also read through any questions that you find at the end of the chapter as well. And you also want to ask yourself what you already know. Are there any headers or subheaders that are already familiar to you? What do you know about it? Think about those things. Next, you actually have to read the chapter. So this should come as no surprise to you, but you do have to read the chapter. You do have to read through the content. And what you're looking for here is you're looking for the answers to the questions that you posed. So if you've done it correctly, you've created questions based on the headers of your chapter, and you're looking for answers to those questions. I would challenge you to slow down when you reach more difficult passages. If you do have to read through it a couple of times, do so. Take your time, and also read one section at a time. So read through a section and then answer those questions that you've posed to yourself. Reciting is the next step. So this is about reciting what you've read or recalling information. After each section, because of course, as I mentioned, you are only reading through one section at a time, you want to make an intentional effort to recall any of the main ideas in your own words. And in your own words is a really important part of this, because if you are just to repeat back exactly word for word what is said in the textbook or in the text itself, you're not really processing that information. That doesn't show a deeper understanding of that content. And so you're more likely to remember something that you've put into your own words or that you've paraphrased in some way. And so I would challenge you to go ahead and do so. Next, you want to go ahead and record your notes. So this would be any typical note-taking that you would do for any class or any textbook, but you may want to consider underlining or highlighting key terms in each of the sections that you've read. You can mark up the text so you can write in the book itself. You can add annotations. I recommend grabbing, sticky notes, and you can always write little annotations or thoughts, ideas, questions, or notes that you have and stick them on the page of the textbook. You could also use them as a bookmark so you know to return back to them later. Or you can choose to take organized notes. So it's really up to you how you want to record those notes. I always recommend that you go ahead and you do take organized notes, but the choice is yours. Next, you have to review what you've learned. So it's one thing to just read through a textbook, but it's another thing to go back and to review your notes or what you've recorded on a weekly basis. This is part of studying. Of course, reading through your notes is not a study method. It is just part of a study method. And so review those notes on a weekly basis and review them again right before class. This is going to help you to jog your memory again. It's going to help you with recalling that information and being able to be an active participant in class. And it's going to help you be able to recall that information when you are tested on the material on your exam coming up. The next technique I do want to talk about, there are a few visual techniques. So I know that many people consider themselves to be visual learners. And this means that you have a preference for learning in a visual style. And so I do want to discuss a few different visual techniques, the first of which being a graphic organizer. So graphic organizers, this could be a concept or mind map, or it could just be something as simple as what we see here on the right. So a graphic organizer is a way to visually organize information from the general to the specific. So as we can see on the right, this is a graphic organizer for a psychology class. But I have found that graphic organizers can be used for almost every class. It could certainly be used for math and science, psychology, as you can see, history, humanities, and the list goes on. You could also choose to create a diagram. So you don't have to be an artist to create a diagram, but this is just a way to visually represent different processes, procedures, steps, or stages. And once again, these can be used for any class. I believe the diagram on the right is from a geography class. So this is all about local wind patterns. Something else that you can do is create a timeline. This is another great visual technique, and it organizes information chronologically or in order. Now, I know that when we think of timelines, we typically think of history. So we think of specific dates and having those dates across a line and knowing what events happened on those dates. But it can be used for so many different subjects. I've included just a few here, including biology, anatomy and physiology, or psychology. It just has to be information that you can put in order. So example number 1 here is all about the development of an embryo. So this is more of the science side of a timeline. You see day 1 through day 7. Whereas on the right, you see example number 2, major Civil War battles. That's more of the traditional timeline that you would think of for a history class. I want to talk about flashcards, and I would challenge you to investigate some online flashcard websites such as Quizlet to avoid buying flashcards. I know that many of us are avoiding stores right now, so you may want to check out some of these online flashcard websites. But I do want to say that you can get creative with flashcards, and you can get creative with visual techniques. Traditionally, we think of note cards as, a key term on the front, and then the answer or the definition written out on the back. But consider something more creative or more visual if you are a visual learner. The back can look more like what we see here, the example on the right. So you can split the back of the note card in 4, and you can draw diagrams, you can include examples, you can create graphic organizers, you can rewrite things in your own words. So definitely get creative. You don't have to stick to the very traditional flashcard structure when you study. All right, so time management is a huge deal for students and workers alike. It's very easy, especially right now, to be distracted and have a lot of things going on, and to not dedicate as much uninterrupted time to studying or doing your work. And so the Pomodoro method has been used for decades by students and workers, and it comes down to this. It's very simple. Set a timer for 25 minutes, and you should have 25 minutes of uninterrupted study time or work time. After those 25 minutes are up, go ahead and take a 5-minute break. You can do whatever you want in those 5 minutes. Then repeat, and then take a 15-minute break after you've completed 4 study sessions. Now, I do realize that for some individuals, this might be too rigid. This might not be a good time, a good amount of time for you. And so you may choose to alter those intervals. What if you could dedicate 15 minutes to study time followed by a 5-minute break, and then another 15-minute break after 4 study sessions? I wanted to point out this website that I've been using specifically in my own work, both as a worker and as a student, and it's called the Marinera Timer. And if you go to this website, you can choose to have an alarm for the traditional Pomodoro method here, or you can make your own custom Pomodoro method. So if you wanted to alter it to 15 minutes of study with a break, or even 10 minutes of study with a break, you can do that through this website here. I recommend that you check it out if you're interested in this time management method. All right, study tip. I don't want you to forget about all of the wonderful online resources that are available to you at this time. So these, of course, are available to you all of the time, but while we're in this stage of online learning, you might as well go ahead and take advantage of what's available to you. And so I wanted to point out 6 of them here, the first being the Virtual Learning Commons. And the Virtual Learning Commons has links to helpful websites and resources for different classes. Plus, there are different handouts and videos created by Learning Commons staff. So definitely recommend that you check that one out. Next, we've got Khan Academy. And the Khan Academy has so many different free instructional videos covering different subjects: math, science, engineering, arts, humanities, computing, economics, and more. Likewise, there's a website called Hippocampus, and it also has free educational videos and handouts that cover different subjects: math, science, social science, and humanities. So if you do need a little bit of help with different videos, definitely check those out. I did mention Quizlet earlier, and that is a website where you can create online flashcards, but you can also create different online learning games to include in your online study method. I've also used the Hemingway app pretty often when writing as a student, and it's a way to help make your writing bold and clear. What you do is you copy and paste your paragraph or whatever you've written into the Hemingway app, and it will highlight areas that you may want to pay more attention to. It'll be highlighted in different colors. It'll highlight those common writing errors. It'll highlight complex sentences that you may want to simplify. But after you've done this, I really recommend that you go ahead and sign in with the Learning Commons and chat with one of our communications and writing specialists or tutors. And they can definitely read through those assignments as well to give you tips. And the last online resource that I do want to point out, and I use this as well, is howtostudy.com. And it's a website that breaks down the best method for studying for each class. So say that you're taking an art history class, you can go on to How to Study and find out how's the best way to study for an art history class, a communications class, a history class, a geography class, and the list goes on and on and on. There's some other really great resources through the How to Study website, so I recommend that you check it out. All right, I do want to thank you for taking the time to watch through this workshop on online study skills. If you do have any questions about these slides that have been presented today, if you have any questions about the Learning Commons, or if you would like to participate in academic success coaching, please go ahead and email me at the email address you find on this slide here. Once again, thank you.